Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody to the evening plenary from Peace Week. It's day 4 of Peace Week and day 95 of the 99 Days of Peace through Unity. And here in Australia, it's actually the International Day of Peace. We are, of course, Wednesday, the 21st of September in the morning on this side of the world. So peaceful greetings to everybody. My name is Ben Bowler from Unity Earth. And I'm very excited to be here with an incredible panel to discuss today's dedication to the core need of fresh, clean air. I want to welcome Dr. Zach Bush. Welcome to Peace Week, Zach.
Really well. I'm really glad to be here with all of you and exciting to cover this topic that I think gets overlooked often because of the invisibility of the subject.
That's right. That's right. Wonderful. And Danielea, welcome to you from the listening field.
Thank you. Really glad to be here and be breathing with all of you.
Indeed. Indeed. Let me just tell you a little bit. Many of you will know certainly a bit about Zach and Zach's work. So let me just bring up the evening plenary here. And Dr. Zach Bush is a physician specializing in internal medicine, endocrinology, and hospice care. He is an internationally recognized educator and thought leader on the microbiome as it relates to health, disease, and food systems. Zach Bush, MD, founded Seraphic Group and the nonprofit Farmers Footprint to develop root cause solutions for human and ecological health. His passion for education reaches across many disciplines, including topics such as the role of soil and water ecosystems in human genomics, immunity, and gut-brain health. His education has highlighted the need for a radical departure from chemical farming and pharmacy, and his ongoing efforts are providing a path for consumers, farmers, and mega industries to work together for a healthy future for people and planet. His work in for-profit and non-profit arenas is creating avenues for collaborative action for all stakeholders in our global community for a regenerative future of health for the planet and our children. Let me read a bit about Danielea Castell. Danielea Castell is a nature communicator, ambassador, and sound weaver who has been building family relations with water, rock, and tree elders for the past 14 years. She is the host of The Listening Field, an online space where humans and nature elders can consult with each other from anywhere in the world. Danielea believes that peace and unity with Mother Earth and all nature relatives is essential to creating a new planetary reality. For Peace Week, Danielea is hosting several different sessions with humans and nature elders, including the Global Gratitude Ceremony, which is coming up on September 24th, day 99, and the intro to the Global Tree Elder Movement, which happened earlier today with Sue Elder Edna Jean Fleury. So wonderful to have you both with us to address, this critical subject. And as you said, Zach, it often does get overlooked because of its invisible nature, as you say. But sometimes the most essential things of all are the ones we take for granted the most. So tell us a little bit, Zach, about what you're up to in this space. What's the current kind of thinking and acting and being with this particular core need of clean, fresh air.
Fantastic. Yeah, we are in an interesting scientific era as well as, I think, biologic era as a species that we can actually, for the first time in the 4 billion year history of a planet, we can actually foresee an extinction event coming. And this would be the 6th extinction that's occurred on the planet by our incredible fossil record that just showed massive cataclysmic events in the past that have led to these huge extinctions. The last one was 55 million years ago. It was caused by a huge death of the soil systems of the world as it was covered with a layer of dust. It was presumed that this was an asteroid or some other massive event that led to this cataclysmic distribution of a layer of fine dust or ash over the whole planet and choked out the topsoil. We lost about 92% of life on Earth at the time, including famous for the dinosaurs going extinct. But interestingly, the world has done these things over and over again, only to come back more beautiful than ever before. Following each extinction, we end up with far more biodiversity and, frankly, far more beauty, as well as intelligence expressed on the planet. And so we went from reptiles, dinosaurs, and like to post extinction. We end up with not only birds and all the like, but mammals and ultimately humans and beyond. So we had this explosion of animal life into its many expressions and its intelligence, but we also saw that in that plant life. So we went from ferns and palms to this explosion of deciduous trees, flowering plants, the wildflowers of the meadow. These didn't exist before that great extinction event. And so we're in this interesting time period now of this sixth great extinction, and the cataclysmic event that's occurring on the planet right now is humans. We have divorced ourselves from a relationship with nature, and we've developed in that, I believe, a real sense of scarcity, which has led to eons, really like thousands and thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years of extractive behaviors. And those extractive behaviors in response to this sense of scarcity leads to this unbalancing of the regenerative quality that is inherent to biology and planet Earth as a whole. And so we are now the existential threat that's happening on the planet, and we're doing that primarily through the same mechanisms that the last extinction occurred, which was killing the topsoils. So we are now killing our topsoils. We've extracted to a point of severe depletion about 97% of the soils of the planet now. And with that 97% of the soils either depleted or severely depleted, we are now seeing a contamination of the air, as the soil can no longer breathe in that which is above us. And so the respiratory cycle from soil to air has failed as we've killed the lungs of the planet in the form of soil. And so we now see, this famous, accumulation of greenhouse gases, famously carbon dioxide being blamed for a lot of things, when in fact the CO2 is not causing the problem. CO2 is a symptom of the loss of lungs, just like carbon dioxide in somebody with emphysema is not the cause of emphysema, it's the symptom of a loss of the lung tissue that would exchange oxygen, CO2, and the rest with the air around it. And so we've killed the lungs of the planet through our soil management, through chemical agriculture, overgrazing, overplowing, all of the things that we've been doing for thousands of years. And what we're doing in that process is desertification. We are losing microbiome, we're losing macroflora and fauna, and we're turning what used to be verdant forests into deserts very quickly now. And we know very well what this causes. This causes widespread loss of ecosystems and vitality on the planet. The most incremental loss that we can see in our recent history is North Africa. It desertified severely over the course of the last 1,000 years. Used to be the largest rainforest on Earth, time of the Romans, and around biblical times, 2,000 years back. You've got a history of a rainforest that was reported that you could walk from one side of Africa to the other without seeing the sun for the density of the tree canopy. And now it's the Sahara Desert. When we lost that desert, the air above it lost its capacity to harness the water system of the rainforest and carry that through the air to the rest of the planet as it goes to the east. And so what happened is we desertified not just North Africa, but Saudi Arabia, up into Russia and Siberia, all the way to the Arctic Circle. We wiped out 1/3 of the planet's arable lands through that one desertification. A loss of fouled management of or balance of the ecosystem around the Nile River led to this widespread collapse of 1/3 of the Earth's verdant soils. We're now in the process of repeating that just south of that in Central Africa, and unfortunately in the same jet stream, we're losing South America through the destruction of central portions of the Amazon rainforest. And so that new band of desertification, Central South America to Central Africa, is creating a new wave of large spread loss of water cycles in the air, and it's leading to desertification of India and ultimately out into Russia, China, and areas of South Asia as we continue this process. And so this is the cataclysmic event that we see with the loss of the air's ability to carry water, and the loss of the soil system's ability to exchange water and carbon dioxide and other gases across that. And so we've set ourselves up for this great extinction event. And the other thing that the air has done in the mix has been a great carrier of the toxins that we have created. And so the chemical agriculture, famous for things like glyphosate, the herbicide, pesticides, are now being carried in the air. These are water-soluble molecules, So in the United States, for example, 75 to 85% of the air that we breathe is contaminated with Roundup and other herbicides, pesticides. 85% of rainfall is contaminated with these chemicals. And so we've so thoroughly killed the lungs of the planet, and we've turned this compartment, this vessel of air, into a harbinger of the worst of what we do, the most toxic things that we create. And for this, we see the collapse of human biology. So desertification on the planet leads to an intoxication of the air, and then the human biology taking that in sees widespread endocrine dysfunction. And the extinction event that now faces our species and so many others is the loss of fertility. And so not only do we have a chronic disease explosion of disease of everything from Alzheimer's to autism in our children, we also see the cancer epidemic and all. But the most threatening thing that we face now is the loss of fertility. 1 in 3 males in Western countries are now infertile by sperm count, and it's now rapidly spreading to the Middle East, Near East, Far East, and the rest with this infertility rate. And so we are seeing a real collapse of our ability to proceed as a species. And we're caught up in the mix of this extinction event of soil. We can't survive without the soil, nor can the rest of the species. So desertification equals sterilization of humans as much as the soil systems in the deserts. So we find ourselves in this singularity moment of extinction, and the air is very much caught up in the process of this failure. And so as we move forward, we're going to have to understand not only our own selves within the context of nature, we're really going to have to understand how this planet breathes. How does the air and the flora and fauna of this system of Earth correspond and work together to co-create the verdant capacity that we have of biodiversity that has marched forward for eons on this planet? And how do we start to become creators instead of consumers of the beauty of the planet? How do we become co-creative in our capacity to regenerate this planet? And that's the great opportunity we have in these next few decades.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you for that opening kind of diagnosis, I suppose, of our current situation, and we're definitely looking forward to getting into some of the remedies, at least touching on some of the directions that we can go in today, because we know that you're connected to so many optimistic things and hopeful things that are happening globally, and heroic things as well, as people respond to this overwhelming, omni crisis. Danielea, let's hear a little bit from you, just your opening in terms of what's present for you. You've been such a big co-creator, of course, in Peace Week and the whole 99 Days of Peace through Unity, bringing in the nature elders and in particularly the trees. Tell us, what would you like to share just as we open up today?
Beautiful. Thank you. Actually, the first thing I'd like to do is this, just invite us all to close our eyes and just take a moment after all we've just heard. And just breathe for a moment. So I'm a huge advocate for lifelong conscious co-creative partnership, in this case with air. I mean, it already exists. It is our most intimate relationship with life. But I'm, and many others are discovering that we can actually step into a much more co-creative space together, in which we are aware of where we are right now. And yet in the field of consciousness, we know that things can shift very quickly from the inside out, and with enough people who are aligned with a certain frequency of life. So the listening field, just very briefly, it's a ceremonial space, and when we open it, we invite in the water, rock, and tree elders and other wise ones that we know and love. And through that heart connection that we have, simply our love for them, we are able to have two-way conversations. And I want to just preface right at the moment to say that this ability is something that indigenous cultures have been living for thousands and thousands of years. And I think that the rest of us are waking up to this at this time. Very specifically, my focus is to help prepare the way so that the voice and the wisdom of the nature elders can be heard at our kitchen tables, right through to our council tables. Because as was shared, I just firmly believe that we aren't going to create a new world. unless we include the wisdom of these nature elders in our consultations, in our development plans, in our solutionizing, that they are sentient, intelligent, and have incredible wisdom that's been garnered over thousands of years. And they're very, very, very willing to share it with us. So my focus at the moment with Clean Air is just to support people to come into direct communion and consultation with the nature elders. And by doing this, their personal connection enables them to remember what and who air really is, and then to take their personal responsibility from that connection. So when people are become agents of this life force from inside of their own being and their own wisdom and wholeness that's activated by being entrained with these nature relatives. So I'm very dedicated to this. This is definitely my little contribution to our planet at this time. So I have been holding listening fields with increasing frequency and attracting more and more people. And yes, we've been supporting World Unity Week, and during there we supported the first primary task of eco-governance, so consulting with the foundations of life, and received a great deal of wisdom from them. We've also been doing listening fields with specifically the tree elders of the planet, and are now collaborating with them on the global tree elder movement. And then recently we've been doing listening fields weekly with the 7 core needs on the question of the second primary task. And so the other focus for me right now is to bring the wisdom from these nature elders into the field. And so I'm doing that through memes, through recordings of some of the transmissions that the people receive. We're looking at podcasts, workshops, ebooks, this sort of thing. So this is just my way to help ensure that people have direct access through awakening themselves to the nature of air, to the nature of their own wholeness, and the deep connection and kinship with air that we have from the moment we take our very first breath until our last exhalation on this beloved planet. Mm-hmm. So that's what I have to share to start.
Thank you, Danielea. Beautiful, beautiful beginning. So we're also joined by Atossa Soltani. So I want to bring Atossa up, who has made it, having been stuck in the traffic in New York. It's the UN General Assembly and Climate Week, of course. So it's a bit crazy, but you made it, and we're very grateful, Atossa, that you made it. Welcome to Peace Week.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's an honor to be here, and yeah, I'm a little bit in a frenzy mode. I'm running around the city, and I'm actually hiding out in the lobby of a building where there are a number of events that I was at are at, because it's nearly impossible to get around the city right now.
Yeah, well, thank you for making the time and being committed to being here. Let's take a breath, Atossa, together, and we'll relax into this. You're very welcome. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Let me read a little bit about you for everybody, and then we'll just hear from you kind of your opening sense as to this core need of fresh, clean air, and how we can work towards guaranteeing access for all humans and animals towards it. Atossa Soltani. Now, am I saying that correctly, Atossa? Would you correct me?
Sure, it's Atossa Soltani.
Thank you. Atossa Soltani is the Director of Global Strategy for the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative, an alliance of 30 indigenous nations in Ecuador and Peru, working to permanently protect 86 million acres of rainforest in one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems on Earth. She is also the founder and board president of Amazon Watch, and served as the organization's first executive director for 18 years. In response to the Amazon fires in 2019, Atossa helped co-found Artists for Amazonia to catalyze global action for the Amazon. In recognition for her life's work as rainforest and indigenous rights campaigner, Atossa was named the Hillary Institute's 2013 Global Laureate for Climate Leadership. Atossa is also a member and contributing author to the Science Panel for the Amazon. We're really delighted to have you with us. Clearly, you're in New York for Climate Week. Tell us, Atossa, what's present with you right now? We'll get to some of the solutions that you're seeing and the hopes that you see. But in terms of like what's really alive for you in the space right now?
Thank you, Ben. That's a great way to start. For me right now is this critical sense of urgency that we're all feeling here in New York. So much of the scientific information that's coming out in the last few months and year points to the need for urgent transformation of all of our systems. Our life-blind economic system needs to transform to become life-affirming, to be aligned with life. The climate crisis is just a symptom of the underlying crisis of our failure to live in harmony with our host, Gaia. That the earth has this living characteristic of being a living system. And in this living system, we as humans are literally must recognize our role as having a host and being not only caring for our own well-being and our well-being of our offsprings, our families, but also for the well-being of the host. And so I'm here present listening to tons of reports about the various tipping points which are being crossed right now, and how we have no more time to just dialogue. We have to take action. So the stakes are super high. I've been part of the science panel for the Amazon, which is also here this week. What we've concluded is that the Amazon is already at a tipping point of ecological unraveling. And this has global consequences for future of life on planet Earth. Let me just say a little bit about why. Of course, everyone knows that the Amazon is considered one of the lungs of our planet. In the way that the Amazon absorbs CO2 and breathes out oxygen. This largest rainforest on Earth, which is the size of the continental United States, is literally the heart of our biosphere, not just the lungs. And let me explain why. In the way that the low pressure system in the Amazon brings in moisture from the Atlantic, and that the trees in the Amazon create this incredibly circulatory system where basically aerosols from flowering trees help the rain fall into the forest. Then the trees, through their evapotranspiration, lift this moisture back into the sky, where you have an average tree that lifts up 1,000 liters of water vapor per day. And in the process also cools the air, generates rain that circulates through the forest in this cycling of, basically water vapor rising into the sky and then falling back down and lifted back up and falling back down. The circulatory system helps to generate atmospheric rivers that are larger than the Amazon River itself, that bring rain deeper and deeper into the continent of South America. But then once they hit the Andes, they go north and south and generate rain across the planet. It is the rain machine, the heart, the beating heart of the circulatory system. Science panel calls it the heart of the hydroclimatic system of the planet. It's responsible for cooling size of the continent of South America. It's responsible even for rainfall and moisture content in the Sierra Nevada and spring rains that bring agricultural productivity in the US, in California, for example. And so literally the system depends on the healthy forests. The trees are doing this heavy lifting and the soil as well. And if we lose the trees, what's happening now is we've lost at least around 26% of the Amazon has either been severely clear cut or severely degraded, where the cycling system, this forest, pump, this biotic pump is starting to unravel. Now, the point at which a forest becomes a savanna and the hydrological system no longer can maintain a rainforest is now. And now that process might take 50 to 70 years, where we could lose as much as, 70% of the Amazon could die back and become a savanna. But that process might take 50 to 70 years, but the threshold at which we are crossing is now. The report that my colleagues recently released basically says that we've crossed the tipping point. We are at tipping point. We're in the threshold. We're standing in the threshold of no return. but we still have time. There's still time. What we must do is protect at least, we must get to zero deforestation now, not by 2030 as governments have pledged, but by now. And we have to get to reforestation initiatives that help to bring back and restore ecosystems and soils and forests and traditional agriculture that also can help restore the soil. And so we must be at a, literally wage of scale of, World War II scale effort to restore 80%, to protect and restore 80% of the Amazon, which means we cannot afford to lose one more tree. We have to also restrain our extractive economy that's really has the logic of, extraction, destruction, domination, and where the dominant system of value, which is money, is basically at war with the life support systems of the planet. So this is present for me. And what's really incredible is the role Indigenous peoples play. Indigenous peoples globally are 4% of the world's population, yet 60% of the intact forests and 80% of the world's biodiversity is on their territories, is on land that is literally in stewardship and in control and stewardship of Indigenous peoples. We owe them a huge debt in supporting their well-being, their healthcare, their education, their transportation, their stewardship practices, their ability to govern and control their territories. We need to basically support Indigenous peoples as the guardians of life, and also, of course, learn from them what it's like to live in harmony with the forest, to live in harmony with a life-affirming economy that's based on basically collective well-being and Indigenous philosophies of what's called buen vivir, or collective well-being. So that's what's inspiring. I'm here with the delegation of Indigenous leaders from the Amazon. We've been having events, media interviews, attending conferences, and speaking out on the urgency of protecting the Amazon, the need to invest in Indigenous frontline communities, and to learn the paradigm of Indigenous stewardship. That is really, really what we need to, that gives me hope that there could be potentially a transformational shift if we, and one of the leaders said yesterday, we must, even if we're not Indigenous, we must learn to act as if we are Indigenous. And we must embody things like rights of nature and the values of seventh generation. So that's what I'm up to here. Thanks for the question.
Incredible, Atosa. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, and thank you for being with us. I know it's a huge amount of work what you're doing, attending with a big delegation, such a big event. So we really appreciate you taking time out, like we do Zach and Danielea, from very busy schedules. I want to acknowledge also Dr. Anita Sanchez, who had another engagement, but has sent in a video that we'll look at a little bit later. And just you were saying about Indigenous people there, Atosa, Dr. Anita Sanchez is Aztec and Mexican American. She's, I'll read her bio in full later. She's a board member of the Pachmama Alliance and Pioneers, and a member of the Evolutionary Leaders. And she's also written an award-winning book, The Four Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Times. So we'll definitely be hearing from Anita a little later. So Zach, let's go to you in terms of, with the time that we have, and we're mindful that you've got till the top of the hour. The scale. I mean, it every time it's presented as authentically as what's been said here so far today, it is deeply overwhelming. But in terms of what can we do, what is being done, what more can be done, what would you say, Zach Bush, are the optimal local to global strategies for turning this around, for ensuring, I mean, we're focusing on fresh, clean air. So let's stay with that for guaranteeing access to fresh, clean air. And we know if we achieve that, that's going to impact the soil and the water and the food and everything else that we're talking about in this whole system. But what are you seeing, Zach, are the best local to global solutions?
Thank you. Yeah, locally, it's down to the single individual's opportunity to recreate a lifestyle that's engaged with nature. We are fundamentally extractive at the individual level right now because of our daily divorce from nature. And so whether we look at our transportation, our housing, our lifestyles within our office buildings, the whole thing goes on and on. Our education system, the way we build schools, the way we build prisons, the way we build hospitals, nursing homes. So interestingly, it's really these details of how we choose to live our lives that has led to this extractive quality as to our global impact. And so it begins with all of us starting to think about how do we start to live lifestyles that are fundamentally engaged with these elements of nature, soil, water, air. And interestingly, I think one of the most powerful tools is fire. To start to invite neighbors over, invite friends over, and sit around a campfire in a backyard for a night is a fundamental way to reconnect to what is the reality is all of us are indigenous. We are all straight from this planet, and our divorce from it is extremely recent. And so we have indigenous roots that are inherent to our biology, to our genetics, to our ancestral memory within our bodies, within our spirits. And so we have the opportunity to re-engage that. And I find that, just a few hours around a fire at night in the dark, looking up at the stars, is a way to immediately, fundamentally change who you are to some former memory of reverence for all that is around you. And so that's the simple local issues. Get back engaged, breathe clean air, eat whole food, start to remember that food is not a nutrient source. It is actually a focus for fellowship. When you sit around a fire in the Amazon jungle with the Achuar tribe or something like this, nobody's talking about what type of diet they're on. Nobody's talking about whether they're carnivores or vegans or paleo or keto. They're simply sharing food for the purpose of fellowship. They've built community around this thing. And so as much as we need to remember how to engage with nature, we need to remember that we are to engage in community fundamentally. And so when you start to redesign your life around that, you will change the neighborhoods you live in. You will change the communities you live and thrive in, and we will build a different earth out of that. As we kind of move out of the community level to that more global level, as you ask, we can see the power of regenerative agriculture as we start to re-envision farmers not as a commodities marketplace, but actually stewards of biodiversity within soil systems. We find them to be more resilient from a business standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from certainly a biologic standpoint, from a mental health standpoint. It goes on and on, the benefits of helping farmers become co-creators with earth instead of programmed extractors of that earth. So the role of regenerative agriculture is going to be fundamental in our recovery of the Amazon, all the way to what I was talking about with North Africa and the river systems that failed there due to over farming. Is because of that failure of understanding of cycles of soil, water, air that led to that desertification of North Africa that's now repeating itself in the Amazon and across Central Africa. We have this great opportunity that is so exciting because at the moment you stop plowing and spraying and you start to instead understand how you can interact with soil systems without disturbing its microbiome, 1 year is adequate to fundamentally change that farm. And so it's not some 100 years from now it might get better. It's literally 1 season. These farmers are blown away by the fact that they're growing things that they didn't think were possible to grow anymore. Their soil had been dead and now it's alive. Biodiversity is returning. Vitality at the economic level is 3x the bottom line within 2 or 3 years. So it's fundamentally immediately impacts not just the biology, but the economics and the societal effects. We see multi-generation farms reoccurring now. The kids had left the farm, there's no economics, there was no joy in the farm left, and so they left. And then you see the family go regenerative, and suddenly these younger generations are coming back and they're growing food and they want to be part of the success story of their family farm again. And so it's just very encouraging how radically fast things change when you sit around a fire, remember that food is to share with neighbors, and start to engage with the food system in a regenerative fashion. As we move to that global level, then we need to understand the role of rewilding our river systems. If there's one thing that we need to begin at outside of the human journey, we need to start making room for nature to rewild water. When you rewild a river system, it has immediate impacts on the air. And so that you start to carry the water again in the air, you start to cleanse the toxins that we've put into that air. And so once again, the speed at which it happened with wolves in Yellowstone National Park in the United States, or the beavers that were reintroduced to the deserts, desert river systems in the southern US, or the lions that were rewilded around the river systems in South Africa, it's so immediate. It's like what seems hopeless suddenly becomes hopeful, because these animals have this fundamental relationship to the land that allowed for vitality to occur in the first place. And we don't need to figure it out scientifically, because frankly, we don't know. We don't know how the wolves, as a keystone species, radically changed every level of the ecosystem. It's mysterious, it's energetic, it's spiritual as much as it is biologic. But we need to divorce ourselves from the need to understand, and we need to do what we know works. And rewilding always works. The more biodiversity you can pack into a space, it always works. And the more beauty you create. And so we know how to rewild river systems. We know how to do regenerative agriculture around those river systems. And the next piece of that is going to be building indigenous practices back in there for all of us to start to understand our role as spiritual beings as well. And these reverent practices that can occur in nature reinforce nature. To witness a sunset, I think, reinforces nature. To see nature's beauty reinforces the energy of nature. Nature unseen moves its energy elsewhere. I don't know where it goes in the universe, but it's not here when it's unobserved. And so be an observer of the beauty, and you become part of the love cycle as much as the water cycle of the planet. And that's where we need to really start to realize that we lost our reverence for the nature, and therefore we lost our nature. If we re-engage our indigenous memory of our reverence, and we start to realize the five senses were created for the observation of beauty, and therefore the experience of love for the planet that we live on, we will fundamentally change everything, and will be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, or the source of the problem. And so those are the layers that I see really working effectively across the planet. And then the last piece is going to have to do with the socioeconomics. The middle class is the phenomenon that has sucked the planet dry of resources. Our definition of success today is move up the ladder economically so that you can buy a bunch of stuff and solve for your scarcity problem. Right now, we are about to see the biggest explosion of the middle class in history between Africa, India, and parts of Asia. And if that 3 billion new consumers are created in the middle class movement, the planet dies nearly immediately for the amount of extraction that we'll see from middle class behavior. We need to actually re-envision society such that these peoples that are being told their upward mobility depends on their ability to consume, we need to help them re-envision a better future than we've created as consumers. And we need to start to participate in a co-creative rather than consumptive mission and society. And so for that, we're going to have to reinvent our technologies and really, I think fundamentally, our value system. What do we value? Do we value just the paycheck? Do we value that middle class growth? Or are we going to start to value a future for our children and planet that we can participate in? So shifting the value system, put an economic system that is inherently built on the value of nature itself, so that our currencies are backed by soil, water, and air rather than gold or nothing at all, or cryptocurrencies that are based on somebody's abstract thought about scarcity. We need to get away from that abstract nature of economies and start to make economies based within natural systems. So we need real asset currencies to re-enter the marketplace and fundamentally change how we're behaving. So those are some of the broad brushstrokes of the opportunities. And those things are happening. Every one of those elements I just mentioned are happening and have proven successes. And so we don't have to wonder about what to do. We need a cohesive, coherent, cooperative relationship across people groups, and realize we have one set of lungs, we have one set of kidneys, we have one liver on this planet, and the biology does mimic human biology, and we mimic it. And if we continue to think, well, India's problems not our problems, Africa's problems not India's problems, we're going to miss the boat, and we'll see the extinction event occur. So we need to understand the holistic reality of biology on planet Earth, and really excitingly, some brilliant people around the world have solved for it, and now we get to apply those on grand scale, starting with each of us.
Mm-hmm. Bravo, Zach. That was a masterful performance in a short period of time, covering a vast amount of area. There's so much there we could dive into. But thank you for that brilliant kind of synopsis of all of that. I'm going to go and have a fire in my backyard and invite the neighbors
Yes,
over as soon as
do it.
possible. Um, one thing you've laid out brilliantly there is the interconnection between soil, water, food, and air, and you've done that. We are here in Peace Week. We are launching the Seven Core Needs campaign. So I just want to flush this up for a moment because I think it's really relevant. That's what's informing each of the 7 days across Peace Week. We started with a panel, Dr. Vandana Shiva and others on day one, which is in living soil, healthy water. Yesterday was vitalizing food. Today's fresh, clean air. Now, each of those have just been beautifully interwoven through Zach's presentation. Tomorrow, physical and emotional safety, comfortable shelter, and then on to the conditions to manifest the life enriching potential of all. So this is a new offering from Eco Governance. Dr. Shelley Ostroff and Jan Golding, who are here with us, are offering this. It's the second primary task of Eco Governance. So just in light of what Zach was sharing there, I wanted to presence. This is what's kind of giving us structure through the week. And the idea of in Peace Week, it's the 40th anniversary of the International Day of Peace. We're on this journey from World Unity Week in June. And the idea of peace and unity is something that's there in our idealism. And the 7 core needs is a way of landing it and grounding it. How can we guarantee access to these fundamental core needs for all of life? I just want to point out too, I loved what you said. Was it the coyotes in Yellowstone? The mystery of that process. And of course, as we heard from Atosa as well, and Danielea, the indigenous technology that understands how that works, at least beyond understanding. It lives in a worldview that is in harmony with those mysteries. And I know, Zach, you just returned from South Africa and a visit to Timbavati, and the other mystery of the white lions as well as the apex creature, apex predator, and how that rewilding process from Linda Tucker and others is having transformational effects on a whole sort of host of things. So there's so much in what you shared. I want to come to Atosa, but she seems to have gone. Oh, she's here. I want to give you a chance, Atosa, and then we'll come to you, Danielea, about answering the question in your own way, but also building on what Zach has offered.
Well, I resonated so much with what Zach said, and I remember running into you, Zach, on the airstrip in the Achar territory last summer. Yeah, definitely would love to go deeper in many of the things you said. I'm currently helping coordinate globally an initiative called the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative. As you mentioned in my bio, it's a groundbreaking initiative that's bringing together 30 indigenous nations in the most biodiverse rainforest on planet Earth to dream a new dream. The people that I work with in this landscape consider themselves dream cultures. Their daily lives are based around the collective interpretation of their dreams. They look at the dream world as a way to interpret their future pathways, as inspirations from Gaia, as inspirations from the divine, from the sacred, from the unconscious collective consciousness, to bring to light, because they say we cannot solve the current complex problems using logic. We cannot linearly, one silo at a time, solve for the complexity that we face. And I learn from them. We have to look at our dreams, kind of in the way Einstein helped to, found the answers to the theory of relativity in his dreams. We look for answers in nature, in the forest, in our dreams. And so these dream cultures have come together about 5 years ago to create an alliance committed to the permanent protection of the source of all life, the headwaters, one of the most biodiverse ecosystems, probably the most biodiverse ecosystem on planet Earth, to permanently protect this area, and in doing so, transform the economic system, the governance system, the value system, and the culture. And so they came together to create the Sacred Headwaters Alliance. We've been working on a bioregional plan for the permanent protection of this region and for the ecological transition and the complete transformation of the economic system. I encourage people to go to sacredheadwaters.org and download the bioregional plan. We also made a video narrated by indigenous voices and based on their views that's basically called Amazonia 2041, a vision from the future. It's an imaginary exercise in how we studying the future, looking back at how we actually might have protected the sacred headwaters and transformed the economic systems. So I encourage people to watch. It's 9 minutes long. It's basically, I see on your screen now, you're bringing it up. Thank you. And to sign the declaration, just join this effort to offer your expertise, maybe your grain of sand, whether it's through your philanthropic contributions or your ideas or your media and social media channels, to pledge your solidarity, to stand with these people who are looking at protecting an area the size of the state of Oregon with the world's largest collection of all living things. And so that's what inspires me every day. We work on solutions like debt relief and Buen Vivir Index, that index of, instead of being driven by index of economic growth and jobs and those kinds of economic indicators, to be driven by well-being indicators, whole system indicators, to be supporting land rights, reforestation, restoration, women's health and empowerment, and indigenous knowledge, bringing indigenous knowledge of the elders with the youth and also with the outside world, to really have a dialogue on civilizations. And so that's what we're working on, and it's very inspiring. I would say, from a philosophical perspective, I'm a student of Donella Meadows, who's one of the original systems thinkers. And she talks about the 12 points of leverage in any system. She's passed on now, but she was a great teacher of mine. And in the way that we look at changing the system, she said, we cannot change the system unless we change the goals of the system. And to change the goals of the system, we have to look at basically from the center out and out in, from the bottom up and the top down. And to change the goals of the system, for example, from economic growth and domination to flourishing of life, to ecological prosperity, aligning things like what we call the standing forest economy, an economy where life flourishes and prosperity in all its sense, in its holistic sense, and not material sense, prospers. And so really, she talks about changing the goals of the system in that way. And then she talks about the biggest leverage in the system is when we change the paradigm, the worldview. This is the hardest change, but the most promising. And that is what Indigenous peoples teach us. Their worldview is that the earth is alive, that the forest is living, that there are life beyond what we can see and the unseen, that our aspirations as human beings is to be good ancestors to future generations, and that our sacred contract is to be in reciprocity, to give back more than we receive. And through that long-term vision of basically being good ancestors, we create the value system, a value system that honors life, a value system that says, there is basically a collective harmony is the drumbeat of the universe. Nature, and we look to nature for the answers. I'm also a student of biomimicry, which I think is one of the most inspiring fields we can look to, learning from nature, just like Zach, you mentioned. Learning from nature means, how does nature work? Being curious about how can we as humans, and we don't actually have to invent everything with our brains. We can actually learn and adapt to the principles of living systems. And one of those principles that I love, that I apply in my work, is that change happens in communities of life. Change happens in communities that cooperate to create conditions conducive to more life. Again, we make change, we transform in communities, not alone, and in communities that help create conditions for more life. And that is a principle of organizing. I'm activist, I'm a campaigner. I organize using the systems thinking. of being basically in community and organizing with communities in a transparent bottom-up way to create conditions conducive to life. So I think there's a lot of, and so if you expand from there out, Earth is a living community and Earth is alive. And thus we could make the analogies that we are cells in the body of a living Earth. And that is our mantra. That's our, cosmic story of who we are, our identity as human beings, that we are actually aware of our host, that while every cell in our body works to keep itself alive, it's also keeping the host alive.
Yeah.
And that if we are aware that we are cells in a body of a living Earth, then we can be good cells, productive cells, potentially stem cells, healing cells, immune system cells. And that consciousness, so that is an identity, that is a paradigm. And, ultimately, I feel like humanity is seeking to know itself. And so I will just say that means that we become, to be productive cells in the body, we become conscious of the food we eat, the money where we invest our money, sorry, there's a lot of traffic where I am, where we invest our money, what we consume, what we buy, who we work for, how we make our living. And that ultimately we recognize that we're not fighting for nature, but we are nature defending itself. Nature is coming through us to defend life on the future of the Earth. And everyone on this call has been called. That's why you're here. And you are listening to the collective intelligence of the Earth's living system. So I'll leave it there.
Atosa, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. I know you're speaking the language that so many of us are resonating with. Danielea has been a great leader for in this space of really connecting consciously to nature elders. And there's so much, Danielea, we want to hear from you. I am aware that Zach's got to go in a couple of minutes. So perhaps, Danielea, if you give a short response for now, and we'll have a little bit longer to hear your wisdom after this. But there's one more question I want to ask Zach before he goes. So, Danielea, if you want to just jump in and maybe just offer your own sense of what Atosa has just shared and what Zach has been sharing, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I would say from Danielea, what I really love and related to what you shared, Atosa, is that the world, when our worldview changes, everything else within us shifts, how we see, how we feel, the ideas that we have, the inspirations. And I would say from my experience and also what I'm witnessing in the listening field is that when we have the experience that a nature elder, someone we love, it's a favorite tree, it's a river, a pond, a mountain, a childhood tree, when they speak to us, when we are spoken to by a nature elder, we hear their voice in ourselves, we are never the same. We are never the same. And what's really wonderful about the listening field and about these kinds of spaces, because people create them in all different ways, is that in consciousness, there's no time or space. So sometimes when people presence an elder, it's their childhood tree that was in the home that they haven't been to in 40 years. And that the presence of that tree comes in and is completely present in love and connected with that person. So once we wake up to this innate bond that we're wired for, but we've only forgotten, our whole worldview changes, and we can never again act as if that beautiful liquid life that comes out of our tabs is not an alive being that we need to say thank you to, because it's giving us what we require, and we love it. And so therefore we respond in kind, and we protect it like our family, like a lover, like a friend. So thank you both. And Zach, I loved your point, just really coming down to it. It is down to each of us individually and the choices that we make within. Because in 7.9 billion people making a new choice all at once in partnership with a tree or a body of water they love, that's how fast everything can change. And this downward toroidal spiral, this instinctive spiral, can pause for a moment and breathe and begin to turn in a new direction that is life-giving, life-loving, and supporting all who are meant to stay here and supporting those who are meant to leave. That's from Danielea, not the Nature Elders.
That's magnificent, Danielea. Thank you. Well, Zach, I want to thank you for your time and generosity of time. I know you've got a lot going on. It seems that we can see that we know what we need to do. We know what needs to happen. We can draw upon the wisdom traditions of indigenous people and other consciousness technologies and tools and resources. We have the solutions to turn this around. It's really now just about building the biggest movement in human history around all that's happening. It strikes me as a tough sell, though, to China and India and Vietnam and Thailand and Indonesia and parts of Africa and South America to say, hey, don't do what we did by accumulating all this wealth and materialistic stuff. Just with the minute that you've got left, how are we going to build the biggest movement in world history, Dr. Zach Bush?
Create a better future to shoot for those people to shoot for. I think that what I do a lot of now is when I was just down in Africa and back there again another few weeks is show them the results of the U.S. behavior. We led the charge on the extractive empire, and the result is that we are dying very quickly as a civilization, and so we will be the first nation to go extinct on our current course. We are leading in all chronic disease categories. We are leading on the amount of chemicals and destructive nature that we have in our water systems and air systems and the like, and so we really have a lot to demonstrate as to the results of. So instead of saying don't get wealthy, I'm saying don't follow the path to your own demise, and there's something much more exciting to be had, which is a wealth that is built on an effortless beauty that unfolds when you align yourself with nature. You can go make a lot of effort towards a lot of money and end up depressed, suicidal, and nearly dead from your chronic disease, or you can align yourself with nature and effortlessly see your capacity to ascend towards a value system that is so rewarding and is so connected that it makes the whole concept of major depression ridiculous, and so we've reached such a catastrophic state as a Western empire civilization / patriarchal colonialized mindset that it's very hard. It's getting harder and harder to argue that this is a good idea. And so, it's getting easier and easier to say, sure, you could go pursue that, or we could all reimagine what value looks like. And so, fortunately, what seemed like a hard thing to argue 10 years ago, 20 years ago, has gotten increasingly easy. And just being over in India, every single lawmaker I met with was like, oh, forget Western civilization. We are no longer trying to compete in that space. We're trying to recreate India for an India of intelligence. And down in Africa, the whole Africanization movement is going wild. Forget trying to compete with global markets. We don't even want it. We want to be Africa. We want to be Africanizing our social structures, our economic structures, and beyond. So fortunately, these peoples are realizing, wow, that is a chasing after the wind and our own destruction. We can see our own path. Thank you, no thank you. We're going to do this on our own terms. And they're starting to close the doors. And we saw a huge decision, a huge shout out to Puvin, the incredible lawyer and indigenous rights activist, rights of nature over there in South Africa, just won a huge lawsuit against Shell and stopped the sonic boom mapping of the coast there of South Africa from oil development. And the judge's ruling said that from here forward, South Africa must take into consideration the voice of the indigenous wisdom before we make any decisions on economic development or extractive technologies. That has never been written into a legal decision in South Africa. So we see this happening now, that the indigenous pride is rising, and just as the lion pride is starting to roar, our indigenous wisdom is starting to roar, that there is something better to be pursued. There is sovereignty to be rehad, and rather than trying to go compete in a global marketplace of an extractive quality. So I have great hope that the wisdom is rising.
Hallelujah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Zach Bush, for being with us. We really, really appreciate your time and your offerings, and I think you've inspired us all. Safe travels, and we hope to see you on down the road before too long. Maybe in a campfire somewhere soon.
That's it. Let's do it out in the bush.
See you, Zach. Thank you so much for being with us. Atosa, are you okay for time for the next 25 minutes or so?
Sure, I think so. There might be some noise, background noise, but I'll try to mute as I.
What we're going to do, I'm not sure, have you ever come across Dr. Anita Sanchez? She's a board member of Pachmama Alliance, and
Yes.
she's amazing. Yeah, she sent in a video. I think it's about 10 minutes long. So let's enjoy what Dr. Anita Sanchez has to offer us in this subject, and we'll come back for closing comments and maybe one or two questions after that. I'll just bring up the video of Dr. Anita Sanchez. It's been amazing so far. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Video. Yep. Can't get. Here we go.
Hello from the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. What you see around me are these beautiful mountains of the land of the first people, the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, and the Ute. I'm Dr. Anita Sanchez, or Auntie Anita, as many call me. I'm Nawa, which many know as Azteca. And so I am so delighted. I thank you so much, Unity Earth, Ben, and Irina, and everyone, for allowing me to be part of this panel. And we are focusing on the rights to clean air. And we know that all human beings need 5 things at minimum. There are many things, but I think about the hoop of life, a circle. And the first is oxygen. All beings need oxygen. So that what we are doing right now, the inhale and the exhale, we don't even think about it. But that's so critical, or we wouldn't be in the physical world. We would be gone, we'd be dead. So very important that we're focusing this afternoon in this panel on this. The second thing that all human beings need is rest. Rest. And even with breath, we have the inhale, the action, and the exhale, the rest. Inhale, action, exhale, rest. If we could really remember that, because we're at a time now, if we're going to really clean up the air, the rights on all the different elements for all beings to have access to like clean air, we need to think about, so rest. The third thing we all need is water. And you've already had a panel who've talked about water, and it was powerful and beautiful. I encourage you to listen to the panels on all these elements. The fourth thing is nutrition. Yes, nutrition. And we had a panel who already talked about, fertile soil, the right that all of us need to be able to have nutrients. And so that's key. And then the fifth thing, not last, is community. And so why I think about all of these that all human beings need in a circle in an indigenous way is because even in breathing, where people think this is only about individual, I'm breathing. No, this is in community. Like what you see here, these trees, I give gratitude to the plant relatives who take the carbon that I exhale, and what they give me is oxygen. Gratitude in everything. So a part of what my understanding and what I want to share with people and the work that I do is understanding to take away this illusion of separateness, and that said of the intimate interconnection of all life. That's what it's about. So I want to share a little story because I walk these mountains all the time. And in walking them a handful of years ago, I could keep hearing Brother Wind. I kept hearing coming to me as I listened more and more. This song came to me. This really acknowledgement of gratitude for all of the physical, but all of the unseen as well, all of the ancestors who have come before, and of the sacred mystery, that all of that. So I'm just going to share what that message was, and then go off of that a little bit more about what I see some of the solutions being to ensuring access to all beings to clean air. And as I walked and as I listened, what I heard was da da ne ho, da da ne ho, Nya nya swami-ho. Nya nya swami-ho. Gratitude. And as I continue to walk, it's now become part of my practice in the morning, at night. As the earth turns and the sun now can be seen in the morning, I get out and I move to each of the directions. And I sing that. I sing it that came from Brother Wind, informing me to remember that I'm part of everything. So if we can remember just with breath, even periodically, but I've been training myself with every breath, every thought, every action. Am I being in right relationship with the hoop of life? And so I offer you that one of the main solutions that we have is that one we can go after right away, which is examining ourselves. What is our worldview? Are we these separate and alone beings, or are we these intimately interconnected with all life? And so even in the breathing, even in the care, then the responsibility of that, to take care of these trees and the earth, there's all these plant relatives that give us the oxygen as we give it the carbon. In other words, this is a reciprocal relationship of gratitude that we have. And you see me smiling because it's a wonderful one. And so it is heart-breaking, heart-opening when we see all the destructive things that we're doing all over this beautiful Mother Earth. But we that cause the problem also are the solution. So part of it is, again, number one, examine your unexamined assumptions. What is your worldview? And if your worldview, and find the facts and just your own breathing, just coming from breath, oh my gosh, I don't do anything alone. And I'm grateful to these beings that are taking care of me. And part of the joy and responsibility then is I take care of the clean air and all the elements, all the beings. So going along with that, I also put my time obviously into my indigenous communities and helping to share various gifts. But today I want to talk about some solutions that go from local to global. And that is, I'm going to speak about the Pachmama Alliance. And I'm delighted on this panel as Atosa, because I won't be speaking about our work in the South on the Amazon, on the Sacred Headwaters Initiative, or the rights of nature, because I know she's given her life to this, and she will speak far more in detail and eloquently about all the planning that's happened there, all the work that's being done that engages the whole world, but also locally. What I want to speak about is the Pachmama Alliance, whose focus is to help inspire us, to have us move into action, to create an environmentally generative, like nature, spiritually fulfilling and socially just human presence on this beautiful earth of ours, on this planet. And so we offer at the local level all over the world, at least 47 countries as I know right now, communities, but it's always growing. And there are a series of programs that we offer, and they're all about this. They're grounded in indigenous wisdom, drawing from the indigenous people from the southern hemisphere, but also the northern hemisphere. And basically acknowledging that we all need to reconnect, that's the biggest solution of all, is to understand our intimate interconnection. And so we have the Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream symposium, which is a wonderful symposium that I love. I just love delivering that. And I'm outside, so I'm going to stop for a moment as the plane goes by. And even as it does, I think about people buying the carbon to neutralize what they're doing, but at the same time, we need to be mindful about everything that we do. But the Awakening the Dream or Change the Dream is one of the first ways that many people get involved in Pachmama Alliance. There are many avenues to get in, but all of these embedded is the focus on indigenous wisdom and what really practical things we can do. And so some of them is being involved with Pachmama Alliance, but we also know this is collaborative. So we send people, let them know about all the organizations that deal with the carbon, all the organizations that are, cleaning the oceans, the air, all of these things. So we really listen and then provide tools and possibilities there. And then after going through this, 4 hour, 3 to 7 hour, it just depends how they're doing it. If it involves some dancing, other rituals with it. But this process, then you get involved in the Game Changer Initiative, and that's wonderful. That you get matched up with people all over the world, and you go through a multi-week program, and every week you study different materials, a lot of really wonderful videos, questions, and then you come together on Zoom and you have a conversation for an hour. And I'll tell you, the people, I will never forget the people have been, I've twice taken the Game Changer Initiative. And that's another way of connecting, that it's not over there this is happening to my relatives that are part of this hoop of life. And so whether it's happening in my immediate presence, it is having an impact. And we all know that very clearly from now coming out of and still dealing with COVID and the results of that too, where we lost many of our indigenous elders and people, and just began seeing more and more of the inequities. So the Game Changer Initiative just goes deeper into really deepening that understanding, again, always pointing to the different possibilities of what you can do. The third program that we have is the Community Climate Action. And that we have communities all over the world, in Japan, in Latin America, in Europe, throughout the North America, and parts of Asia, Australia, and other places. And this is where you really get focused on your local community. And it's wonderful because you can address the issues there. So addressing clean air issues, we make sure to provide tools and resources, and people get to work of making sure you're using every breath that you have to ensure the rights of clean air for everyone, or whatever other issue it is. And so it's really, really critical. So I just want to say that there are many, many other organizations like Unity Earth that's doing this, to another way to look here, because it takes all of us in this one hoop of life. And I just want to again thank you. I'm sorry I could not be here to answer questions, but you're in really good hands, because I know the people on this panel, and they're friends of Pachmama Alliance, and they're friends of mine as we walk the sacred headwaters of the Amazon, as we walk in our backyards, in our front yards, as we watch these birds and all of these beings. So remember, all beings need, in order to have life and to thrive, is first, oxygen; second, rest; third, water; fourth, nutrition; and fifth, community. But think of it as the hoop of life, all of them intimately interconnected. We need all of this. We need all of the elements. So in gratitude, da da ne ho, da da ne ho, nya nya, swam hi ho, nya nya, swam hi ho. Gratitude to all my precious relations. Aho.
Love Auntie Anita Sanchez. Beautiful, beautiful sharing. And again, talking about changing our worldview has been fundamental to the way forward. And Danielea, you have so much to offer in this space. So I believe you've got some slides to share and to really share with us the wisdom that's coming from the nature elders with the time we have left. And then we'll have some final comments from Atosa and yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So we're going to hear from the nature elders, and we asked them the question, how do we organize ourselves in such a way that we can guarantee that all humans and animals have access to fresh, clean air? And I just want to say, before I share, there's 5 memes, and then I have a really short audio transmission to share, just to say that these come from an individual in direct dialogue with a nature elder, and then they share them in the chat, and then I make the meme. And then also sometimes another nature elder shows up and gives some wisdom. And so when it feels relevant, I put the name of that nature elder on the meme. And the last thing I just wanted to say is that we are discovering that there are layers of understanding inherent in these very, very simple messages. So as I read them, I invite you to consciously inhale what you hear and notice what lands in you. What's alive in you in the brief silence that follows? So here we go. This was our group question. Asked directly to fresh, clean air. They responded. Do big things in small ways. A forest stands because of the trees. A river runs because many drops move together. Fresh, clean air. How do we ensure your thrival? Bless the air with your breath. Fresh, clean air. How do we organize? Start with yourself. Be the stewards of your own breath. Fill it with your caring, your love, and your concerns. Start with yourself and join your brothers and sisters along the way. Fresh, clean air. How do we ensure your thrival? Love me. Respect me. Listen to me. Let me teach you. Fill your lungs with me and know me. Feel gratitude and bless me. Honor me as an aspect of the one. Fresh, clean air. How do we ensure your thrival? What you do to me, you do to yourself. What you do to your brothers and sisters, you do to me. So now I'd like to share a very, very short transmission. Oh, forgot to share sound, right?
That's right. There was no
Thank
sound.
you. I caught it.
Connected most with the grandmother tattoo. Yes, I connected most with the grandmother tattoo, who is this just enormous eucalyptus tree that gave me teachings for many years. And yeah, she immediately went to this personal aspect of the breath and inviting daily, bringing more awareness to the breath. And it was, she said a lot, but it was like praise the breath, celebrate the breath, help others to become aware of the preciousness and the sacredness of the breath. And that, you know, the thing we can do the least without, we can maybe 2 minutes do without breath. And so the practice of holding your breath and watching what happens in your body tells you, I need this, I need this. And so becoming more, for people to become more aware in any way you can help others. And then it was, I forget the name of the Buddhist blessing. You breathe in love and breathe out love, and breathe in love, breathe out love. Again, that we personally can have this effect on the collective field of all beings. And she also said several times, like, what do you really need? What do you need? And that fit with what someone else said about, we, in our excess, we produce all this, you know, industry that it just gives off pollution. And it's like, what is this? What do we really need? We need clean air and water, and, you know, we need shelter, and, but the basics again, like this, like the core needs. And then at the end, she kept saying, look up at the sky. And I was seeing the streaks, and she said, we must stop this practice of geoengineering. And, you know, some people don't even understand that it's actually happening and been happening for so many years. And it is having a very toxic effect. Anyhow, that came as a more practical thing. But again, back to the same thing Oak Creek said, sing blessings into the wind, sing to the clouds. I do that all the time and ask them to have strength, to give them strength to resist the, you know, the other stuff coming in from the geoengineering and the pollution. And then last was just plant more trees and take care of the trees that are there around you, knowing that they are air purifiers, master air purifiers. So I was so grateful. Thank you, my elders, for such wisdom.
Just taking a big inhale. Receiving this great gift of life. And so I'll just close by saying that, you know, the local to global strategy that I would advocate for is to support more and more of these communion circles with nature elders, and it's happening. You know, more and more I'm witnessing people taking leadership and creating opportunities to go direct with their nature elders. And what Shelley had suggested, and I really love this idea, is that how can we sense into, how do we scale this up? How do we bring this concept of these communion circles with our nature elders into educational institutions, into social institutions? So, and how can we do that creatively? You know, because one of the things that I think that is really helps the listening field hold, and the energy in the field actually accumulate. So the field exists and we tap into it, is the power of ceremony, and also the power of breath and singing and sounding. And so, you know, bringing the power of the arts and ceremony as well. So if anybody has ideas, I really welcome them, because I do imagine a world in which we have city councils, and they, in their deliberations, always bring in their nature elder, or in the middle of a board meeting, will just put up their hand and go, and then they'll say, my tree has something to say, and then they share that. What a world we can create together in consciousness and with love. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Danielea. Thank you. Thank you for your way showing for so many of us. I brought in my nature elder, Whale Rock, from down in Wilson's Promontory, the southernmost part of the Australian mainland, just to be here as we close today. So let's bring Atosa up to respond and reflect the beauty and the wisdom that Danielea has shared, what we heard from Auntie Anita, or anything else you want to leave us with as we close this beautiful circle today, Atosa.
Thank you so much, Ben, and beautiful to hear all of this wisdom today. I was in a gathering this morning of, sorry, there's a little bit of noise. I was at a gathering this morning of activists who were working on the movement for the rights of nature. And we were talking about how transformational that work is, to really speak for the trees, speak for the forest, speak for life, speak for those, for the trees, for the forest, for all species. Tomorrow, two types of frogs that are in danger of extinction go to court, to have their day in court, fighting for their rights to exist, to survive, to perpetuate. And we were talking about how important this work is, because humans are also part of the rights of nature, is also rights of people. And this is a paradigm shifting framework. I encourage everyone to check out the work of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. And it's just exciting. Rivers are becoming, getting personhoods and having guardianship. Mountains, sacred mountains, are being protected. The rights of watersheds is being used to stop fracking and mining, and that courts everywhere are learning. Law students, law schools, judges, lawyers are learning Communities are passing ordinances to protect the rights of nature. And all of this is really exciting because it's, it's not just regulating harm, it's really transforming the system. And so that's one of the things I'm most excited about. And the other thing is that so much that is inspiring me right now is about creating, sorry about all the noise. So much about what's inspiring me right now is focusing on water, on the Sacred Headwaters is focusing on a bioregion where water runs as the boundary. And when you think about water, water is the most abundant gas in the atmosphere, water vapor. There's, even more than carbon, water determines how climate change affects us. Water imbalance in the hydrological system is droughts, floods, hurricanes. That is climate change. The imbalance in the hydrological system, the atmospheric rivers that become violent, or the way water moves through the landscape is a key. And scientists are now telling us that if we focus on balancing the water cycles from the smallest, tiniest water cycle in the root of a tree to your garden, to your watershed, to the largest system, which is the Amazon, we can get climate change under control in a matter of decades instead of centuries. And that consciousness of being connected to the hydrological system of the planet, and the way we balance the hydrological systems, bring it into the soil, we bring it into the garden, we bring it into the forest, we bring it into the wetlands, we bring it into the reefs and the oceans. We balance through allowing water to reconnect with the landscape. And that consciousness really inspires me, because I feel like otherwise we are, playing this futile game of urgency without solutions. But the water cycle seems to be, to me, a key. And that's what I want to leave you with: rebalancing and making peace with water cycles of this planet, from the smallest to the largest system. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Atosa Danielea. I'm going to bring Shelley Ostroff up just to give a final word of thanks. She's a co-creator of Eco-Governance, which gives us the 7 core needs. And Atosa, particularly to you, it would have been easy for you to say, hey, I'm pretty busy. I'm in New York for the climate conference and I'd love to be there, but I can't make it. But you showed up. And I think that's such an important thing. I want to acknowledge your commitment and effort that you've made to be here with us. It's been very, very valuable. So just to bring Dr. Shelley Ostroff in for a quick thank you, and then we will close today.
Thank you. A huge thank you to all of you, Zach and Anita and Danielea and Atosa. It's been extraordinary, and I'm so grateful that we gave the space to listen to air, which is often neglected because of its invisibility, and yet is so foundational to every aspect of our life. And just encouraging people to learn about what is happening to our air, and on so many different levels, from noise to light, pollution to electromagnetic manipulation and everything else. We don't pay enough attention to it. And thank you, Atosa, also for bringing in the water so beautifully at the end. I echo everything that you've said. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity and for the beautiful wisdom that came across, and looking forward to continuing this co-creative process of working together to ensure that all humans and animals have guaranteed access to fresh, clean air.